This is Hidden Killers Week in Review.
A look back at the most prolific stories of the week.
You're listening to the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
Featuring attorney, guest, and former felony prosecutor Eric Fadis.
Just right, literally, the day after she ended her life, allegedly, John Paul was in church preaching, which seems a little bit odd. You might want to take a couple days to yourself. I don't know. But that's not really exactly what he did. Let's take a look at that, where he tells his congregation about the death of his estranged wife.
We're not going to do an altar call today. Instead, I'm going to have you stand up, and I'm going to make an announcement. And after the announcement, I'm going to ask that you leave church quietly and don't talk about the announcement here in the building, please, if you can, so y'all can stand to your feet. Before I make the announcement, I also want to say that my request to you is that you will continue to come to church and serve and give for the next little bit, because I don't want to have. I'm taking a little bit of a break, and I don't want to have to worry about the church. My break may be a few days, a few weeks, I don't know. I got a call late last night. My wife has passed away, and it was self-induced, and it was up in North Carolina, and we're gonna have a funeral for her next Sunday here at 3 p.m. And so it's all I can. Yeah, I'm just kind of going on adrenaline right now. So y'all pray for me and my kids and everybody. And she wasn't. Y'all knew that she wasn't well mentally, and that she needed her medicine that was hard to get to her.
Now, I mean, that may be true. Some folks who suffer from mental illness do not want to take medication. I have no idea what was going on here. That's his narrative. That's the narrative he's putting out to his congregation and telling them, don't talk about this the day after she's dead.
In watching it, I can't help but think about the value that he places on that role in the church and how that's so important to him. It's so important that he couldn't even miss it the day after his partner became deceased. And so, and then you hear in his voice, he sounds like he might be in distress. Yeah, I guess anybody kind of could put that on if they wanted to. And hearing it just seems peculiar that he would be at the pulpit the next day to me.
And he talks about taking a break. Nope. About a week later, he's preaching at the service of her funeral, too. Let's take a look at that.
She was so creative. Everything she did was so creative. What's the next picture? What's the next picture? She'd stop. We'd be on the way to like a show or something. She'd say, stop, I got to get a picture. I said, we're going to be late. She said, I don't care. What's the next picture? Next picture. So one of the things she did for me is I'm a comic guy, right? So this is things she did that was just out of the givingness of her. She dressed up like Mystique, the last one. So the next picture, she loved this picture. She thought that was the funniest picture in the world.
The demeanor there. Again, he's not charged with anything. He's innocent as of right now. I don't know. It just doesn't play well. It doesn't read well, if you will.
Tony, everyone has a different cry. I've got an ugly cry. I will admit to that. It's embarrassing. In hearing him, one thing I noticed is he's like sniffing in a lot as if he had all this mucus from crying, but you can't really hear any mucus in the inhalation. Maybe I'm parsing this out too much, but I don't see any tears. And is it consistent with someone who just has a weird cry? Sure. But is it consistent with someone who's just trying to put it on? I think so.
Yeah, I mean, and he's, the thing is, in reality, she had already moved on from him. She didn't want to be with him. He had accusations of harassment and many other things against him, even posting a topless photo of her online in revenge. This is a pastor.
It's not very godly.
And he apologizes for it eventually. It was just up for an hour, is what he says in the apology letter. first denying it, then it came out that he did. He wrote the obituary as well, and just half of the obituary is about him, which is interesting. She helped Pastor JP with the church in every way. Mica was the worship leader, graphics designer, youth leader. Mica made the greatest efforts to always be the best wife she could be. She truly served Jesus and her husband with all of her heart. She would praise her husband after every church service, telling him he was the best preacher in the world, even if it wasn't true. She also told him he was the funniest preacher in the world, even though that wasn't true either. Mica loved her family so much. I mean, he's really controlling the narrative on this, or attempting to control the narrative on this, that everything was kind of hunky-dory. And, people die. You don't want to say anything bad about them. But I don't know. It just seems like he's really kind of grasping on here, going, this is how I want people to see this.
Yeah, sort of this. We got this revenge porn preacher who's really making it about himself here in this obituary. It's sort of. I'm no psychologist, but some people might say that that's consistent with narcissism. It's consistent with, him having this image of himself, and like you said, wanting everyone else to share that image, even in light of this horrible tragedy of his partner. He's still kind of the main focus in his mind, and that's just a bad look, man.
It's a little weird. Here he is online trying to explain a lot of this away.
My wife was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, schizophrenia, dependent personality disorder, and several other diagnoses by different doctors at different times all throughout the past 7 years. The two diagnoses that stayed with her every single year was schizophrenia and bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 is where you're super high and you want to give away $1,000. The low is you want to end your life. And she went super high and super low many, many times over the years. And it was a struggle, almost a constant struggle, but we got through it. And the schizophrenia is where she would hear voices or talk to people that were not there. She'd play chess with people that were not there without a chessboard. She would sometimes forget who I was or forget that I was her husband. She'd forget who she was. Or forget that she was my wife. Sometimes she'd forget who her family is, things like that. And on March 11th, remember that date, because you super sleuths out there are going to need to know that date for the future. But on March 11th, something happened that kind of forever changed the course of our lives. And she went really deep into the schizophrenia and was delusional and accusing me of certain things, slashing tires or sending a naked picture or stalking her or things like that I didn't do. And I found an Apple AirTag in my truck that week, and I assumed it was hers because I would keep seeing her pop up where I was at. Here's a video of I was at a gas station on March 13th, and I look up and I see this very beautiful woman in a car that I've never seen before. And I learned quickly, of course, it was my wife. And she was hiding out or spying or something, and began videotaping me. And so I videotaped her, videotaping me. It's sad that the mental illness is sad, but we managed to always find lightheartedness in life in spite of it, and we always got through it. And I would do things like sometimes I had to play into the delusion, like pretend like I was a double agent who quit their job to marry this, beautiful girl. And I'd have to show her our marriage license. And one time I even wrote a resignation to an agency saying that I can no longer work for you because I fell in love and wanted to get married and things like that. It would help her take her medicine when she would come off of it. And I learned that about 2 years into the marriage. And we worked hard to keep her on her medicine. We worked very hard to keep her enjoying her life. She didn't have to cook a single meal. She didn't have to clean. She didn't have to work. She just had to take her medicine and enjoy her life. And we did our best with what we had. But
assuming that's true, okay. But I don't know. I mean, this is his accusations of how things were going versus what the other side is saying. What do you make of that video?
In watching it, what it screams to me is like, the preacher is the best dude ever. And Mica's just this horribly distressed, troubled individual. And there's really a contrast in terms of how he's describing both of them. And clearly mental health affects relationships and affects people. And perhaps that it did result in suicide. I don't know. But he just seems like a bit of a slippery eel, and that this was sort of contrived and certainly thought about a lot because he had the video queued up ready to go.
Yeah, he's got the answers immediately. And sometimes people, they're just telling the truth of what actually did happen. And this does certainly look suspicious and odd. So if you didn't do anything, you would be out there just trying to clear your name. But we just know of his past, of his history. He met her. She was the nanny in his former marriage. She was 15 when they met. There's accusations from the ex-wife of him having affairs, having prostitutes, and having sexual relations with underage girls as well. There's just a lot. There's a lot that doesn't look good on him, which then makes everything else look really bad. And that's where hopefully the investigation into this can go where it goes. Because again, he's innocent until proven guilty. But it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, no, it seems like almost he's trying desperately to overcompensate for all of these insinuations and ideas people might have about him and what his involvement can be. And he's kind of going overly on the defensive in my appraisal. And it comes off as a little disingenuous and rehearsed and orchestrated.
Well, he denies everything categorically to this day. And again, no charges have been filed at this point, but there is an investigation that's going on into this suspicious death of Mica Miller. We'll have to watch and see where this all goes.
Want to listen ad-free? Want advanced access to all of our interviews before anyone else?
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
You get every episode commercial free.
So you can binge on true crime
until you can binge no more.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts now, or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast next.